In 1974, a series of assaults began targeting women. The assaults were varied, and imagine there was one every month. This continued from 1974 to 1978, for years of terror for women and students, because this criminal hated women. The protagonist of this story was the most famous serial killer, who even terrified America at the time. An additional point is that his case is still studied in law schools today, as it has become a fundamental study for understanding criminal behavior. How does an ordinary person turn into someone mentally disturbed, who loves murder and torture? So who is the hero of today's story, and what did he do to gain all this attention? This video is for educational and awareness purposes only, and it is not intended to glorify or encourage any form of crime. All information presented in the video is derived from credible and reliable sources. Ted Bundy, born on November 24, 1946, in Burlington, Vermont, grew up in a complex family situation. He was told that his mother was his sister. His mother, Eleanor Louise Cowell, was unmarried at the time of his birth, which led her family to present him as her parents' child. These events greatly affected his psyche and changed his personality. During his teenage years, Bundy exhibited troubling behaviors, such as isolation, lying, and an unnatural interest in crime and violence. It is believed that his interest in pornographic magazines depicting violence against women, along with a traumatic breakup during his college years, contributed to shaping his criminal motives. This combination of psychological and social factors may have played a role in his transformation into a serial killer. This information is based on available reports and sources, and accounts may vary regarding the details. Ted Bundy had an extraordinary ability to manipulate minds and exploit others' weaknesses. He had a charming personality and appeared kind and friendly at first, which made it easy for him to gain the trust of his victims. He knew how to present himself as a helpful and friendly man, which was one of his methods to convince women to follow him to remote locations where he would commit his crimes. Additionally, he had a remarkable ability to connect with others and quickly build relationships with his victims, making him appear as an ordinary and even likable person in the eyes of those around him. Bundy was extremely intelligent in managing his actions, ensuring he left no evidence behind to escape the authorities. He meticulously planned his crimes, ensuring to leave as few traces as possible. He traveled between U.S. states with ease and killed in various locations, making it difficult to pinpoint his whereabouts or link his crimes together at first. His movements were precise and systematic. He frequently changed his car and chose isolated locations for his crimes, leaving the authorities powerless for a long time. As for his trial, it was controversial due to his charisma and intelligence. During the trial, Bundy decided to represent himself, drawing significant attention from the media and the public. He was able to convince some people of his innocence due to his eloquence and charming personality, making him appear calm and civilized. However, despite his attempts to divert attention away from his crimes, the evidence was strong enough to convict him. In the end, he was found guilty of murder and sentenced to death. His trial also demonstrated how Bundy used his personal intelligence not only to deceive his victims, but also to confuse the judicial system, making his case one of the most infamous in the history of American crimes. How Ted Bundy was captured in 1975. Ted Bundy was arrested on August 16, 1975, after police investigated his suspicious behavior. The arrest began with police monitoring several crimes believed to be linked to him. That night, a Utah State police officer stopped Bundy while driving a suspicious vehicle. Inside the car, the officer found tools used for kidnapping women, along with evidence that raised investigators' suspicions. Although Bundy initially denied all charges, he was arrested based on the evidence. It later became clear that he was responsible for many horrific crimes committed in Utah and other states. Conviction and sentencing. After his arrest, authorities began connecting Bundy to numerous murders and assaults he committed between 1974 and 1978. In 1976, murder charges were filed against Bundy in Utah, and he was tried for the murder of a female student, his first victim, among other crimes. He was also convicted of several other crimes in different states, such as Colorado and Washington. Ultimately, he was found guilty of murdering two women in Utah, with his first trials revolving around these crimes. This was followed by further trials related to other victims. Bundy was sentenced to death in 1979 after his conviction. Details of his execution on January 24, 1989. Over 10 years after his conviction, Ted Bundy was executed on January 24, 1989 at Florida's Rayford Prison. The execution was carried out using a lethal injection, the method chosen for capital punishment in Florida at the time. Despite Bundy's numerous attempts to delay his execution, including filing legal appeals, the sentence was carried out after a lengthy trial, with Bundy refusing to fully confess to his crimes. While in prison, Bundy showed slight remorse, but revealed little about his victims, even in his final moments. As he awaited execution, Bundy attracted significant media and public attention due to his mysterious nature and charismatic personality. Ted Bundy's impact on society and global interest in his story after execution. After Bundy's execution, his name became one of the most infamous in the history of American crime. The story surrounding him, from his heinous crimes to his controversial trial, inspired numerous books, documentaries, and media pieces exploring his character, his trial, and his intelligence in manipulating minds and concealing evidence garnered worldwide attention, raising questions about how a seemingly ordinary person could become a serial killer. His impact was profound on American and global society. His crimes shocked the public, sparking discussions about criminal psychology, social class, and upbringing. The story also contributed to greater awareness of serial murders and led to improvements in forensic investigation techniques in the U.S. In the years following his execution, public interest in analyzing Bundy's personality and behavior persisted. Studies on his psychological profile increased, aiming to understand the factors and causes that could transform an ordinary person into a serial killer. Ted Bundy became one of the most iconic figures in American culture, with numerous media projects centered around his story, cementing him as a part of the dark history of crime in the United States. One detail I forgot to mention is that Ted Bundy escaped from prison twice. The first time was on June 7, 1977, during his trial in Colorado. He took advantage of being allowed to go to the courthouse library without handcuffs. He jumped from a second-floor window about 10 meters high and fled into the woods. He remained on the run for 6 days before being recaptured. The second escape was on December 30, 1977, when he broke out of his cell in Garfield County Jail, Colorado. He lost a significant amount of weight to fit through a small vent in the ceiling of his cell. After escaping, he traveled to Florida, where he committed more crimes before being arrested again on February 15, 1978. This second escape was the most dangerous, as it led to additional murders that further cemented the charges against him and ultimately resulted in his execution. Psychological analyses of Ted Bundy's personality. When studying Ted Bundy's personality, it becomes clear that he suffered from a mix of psychological and social factors that contributed to his criminal behavior. Many psychological analyses indicate that several disorders may have affected his personality, in addition to the environment in which he was raised. Contributing psychological factors. Emotional conflict in childhood. From birth, Bundy's life was filled with emotional and psychological conflict. He grew up believing that his mother was his sister, which had a deep impact on him. This psychological trauma have influenced the development of his identity and personality, leading to distortions in his perception of himself and the world around him. Social isolation and negative effects on personality. Bundy appeared to lean towards isolation and withdrawal during adolescence. He did not have normal social relationships and displayed inappropriate behavior in many situations. This isolation was one of the factors that led to a lack of healthy connections with others, which contributed to the development of a distorted personality. Possible psychological disorders. According to psychologists, Ted Bundy is believed to have suffered from antisocial personality disorder (ASPD). This is a psychological disorder characterized by a disregard for the rights of others and a lack of remorse or guilt after committing wrongful acts. People with this disorder often lack empathy and moral feelings. In Bundy's case, he displayed cruelty and violence towards women without any sense of remorse. It is also possible that he was affected by narcissistic personality disorder, as he had a strong desire for control and dominance over others. Additionally, he exhibited a high level of arrogance and self-admiration, traits that may have facilitated his ability to deceive his victims and evade capture for a long time. Behavioral analysis. Ted Bundy knew how to appear like a normal, even charming person. He had the ability to manipulate minds and convince others of his friendliness. He even used his charm to deceive both victims and law enforcement authorities. He would pretend to be helpful and appear if he was suffering from physical injuries, which made him even more convincing when asking women for assistance. Psychologists' opinions on what drives serial killers to commit their crimes. There are many psychological theories that attempt to explain the behavior of serial killers, and they vary from case to case. However, the possible psychological reasons that may drive serial killers like Ted Bundy to commit their crimes can be summarized as follows. Motives of revenge and aggression. Many serial killers suffer from suppressed anger or a desire for revenge against people they believe have wronged them or emotionally neglected them. This revenge may be linked to childhood experiences such as abuse or betrayal. The desire for control. Some serial killers, like Ted Bundy, exhibit a strong desire to control their victims. This desire for control may stem from a lack of feeling in control of their own lives or from having experienced emotional manipulation in the past. Lack of empathy. Many serial killers do not feel remorse or empathy for their victims, allowing them to commit brutal acts. This lack of empathy may be associated with disorders such as antisocial personality disorder or narcissistic personality disorder. Response to feelings of frustration and neglect. Some serial killers may suffer from feelings of social isolation or neglect. In some cases, they may find pleasure in violence as a way to enhance their sense of power and gain recognition from others. Conclusion. Ted Bundy was a complex example of a serial killer. Psychological analyses make it clear that he suffered from multiple mental disorders, which played a fundamental role in shaping his violent behavior. His exceptional ability to manipulate minds and hide evidence allowed him to evade capture for a long time. It is important to always take proper precautions in public places and avoid going with strangers or fully engaging with them without verifying their intentions.
So insignificant, I'm embarrassed that I should be getting this publicity from it. Really embarrassed.
And here ends the story of Ted Bundy, which had a significant impact on popular culture, making him one of the most famous serial killers who intrigued people around the world. His complex personality and terrifying behavior have inspired many filmmakers and writers to create stories based on him. Some of the most notable works that depicted his story include the movie Extremely Wicked, shockingly evil and vile starring Zac Efron, which tells the story from the perspective of Elizabeth Clover, Bundy's ex-girlfriend. The film received a rating of 6.7/10. Also, the movie The Deliberate Stranger and the documentary Conversations with a Killer, the Ted Bundy tapes. These works highlight the extent of his story's influence on the media and the immense curiosity about his complex personality. The most important lessons we can learn from this story: personal awareness and caution, avoiding excessive trust, taking precautions in both public and private places, Because there isn't just one Bundy, there are many horrifying ways out there. Recognizing warning signs and suspicious behaviors, because no one can hide everything without showing strange signs. Bundy is not just a name in the dark pages of history. He is a constant reminder of the importance of awareness and caution. While his story remains a subject of fascination in popular culture, the lessons it provides emphasize the need to enhance personal safety, which should always be on everyone's mind. Leave us your thoughts in the comments about this character. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. It really motivates us to keep making more videos. See you in another video.